Hello, good morning. Welcome to your daily hope booster video. Today is Wednesday on another sunshiny day here in Calgary. When I did my video outside yesterday, I froze my butt off, so I'm going to stay on the inside today and speak to you about optimism versus pessimism. So people have often told me that I am ridiculously optimistic. I always believe in good things happening, that things are just going to work out, that there must be an answer to a solution, that I just haven't found it yet. There's something I just haven't tried yet. I agree that I'm optimistic, but I also, I kind of disagree because I think optimism is just a part of being hopeful, and that is a characteristic that I definitely identify with. So I'm reading another super fascinating book by psychologist and author Dr. Martin Seligman. Seligman is the founder of positive psychology, which is the science of increasing well-being, as opposed to the more traditional psychology, which is decreasing sadness. So if traditional psychology is going from negative to neutral, positive psychology is going from neutral to positive. This book, which is called Learned Optimism, is his premise is that optimism can be learned, and we can learn to be more optimistic, which will in turn increase our quality of life. So I'm at the really early stages of the book, but an idea that struck me right away is his discussion of optimism versus pessimism and how to tell if a person has an optimistic attitude or a pessimistic one. So in Seligman, I get that name wrong every time. In Seligman's theory, the difference between optimism and pessimism, which is like our likelihood to get back up and try when things get tough, it comes down to what we tell ourselves are the reasons that bad things happen. So essentially, the way we think about and also explain the causes of success and failures is what really matters. Seligman and his colleagues, John Teasdale, Lynn Abramson, and Jody Garber, they claim that we all have a style of explanation that is reinforced by our behavior in response to negative situations. Our attitudes towards three different concepts are how we can determine how optimistic we are. So those three concepts related to optimism are permanence, pervasiveness, and personalization. So I'd like to talk about each of those and their impact on optimism versus pessimism, and then I'll summarize by telling you where to find the book and how you can learn a little bit more about all of these topics, because it'll be a bit rapid fire. Okay, so let's talk about permanence first. So the idea is that people who give up easily believe that the causes of bad events, people who give up easily believe that the causes of bad events are permanent, that the bad events will persist and will always be there to affect their lives. On the flip side, people who believe that bad events are temporary or transient, so those that think that negative situations are like sometimes or lately, typically have a more optimistic style. This matters because it's how we are opt to respond to failure and how quickly we bounce back from it determines how optimistic or pessimistic we are about a situation. I mean, we know we're all prone to failure. We know failure is a thing that's going to happen in our lives. But how permanent we believe that failure is, how absolute and concrete, will determine how quickly we can bounce back from feelings of failure, if we bounce back at all. Does that make sense? So if you have a permanent feeling or explanation for why bad things happened, it's more likely that it'll take you longer to bounce back if you bounce back at all. There's people who truly believe that bad things can never be fixed, can never be changed, and those are people who don't bounce back at all in most cases. At least that's what the research suggests. Does that make sense? All right. So if permanence is about time, let's talk about pervasiveness being about space. So the idea around pervasiveness is related to how much we allow one aspect of our lives to bleed into another. So for example, if you've lost your job in this pandemic, have you also stopped being a good husband or wife? Have you stopped going outside or stopped participating in virtual happy hours because you can't stand to see happy people? If any of this rings true for you, you may be catastrophizing, which leads to greater levels of hopelessness and negativity being pervasive in your life. You have let one situation, losing your job, be pervasive throughout all other aspects of your life, even though it doesn't have to be. Those that have a more optimistic personality style suggests that it comes down to this. People who have universal explanations for their failures give up everything when failure strikes in one area. So if you have lost your job, that makes failure in every other aspect of your life. But people who make specific explanations, people who make specific explanations as opposed to universal explanations may become hopeless in only one area of our life, but continue being hopeful in other areas. So if you've lost your job, yet you continue to look on the bright side, continue to control what you can control, keep your structure and your fitness routines and things like that, don't let it affect other areas of your life. Don't let it become pervasive in your life. You are likely more optimistic. Specific explanations become more optimistic. Do any of these explanations sound like what you're dealing with right now? Give some thought to how pervasive this failure is in your life. The last attitude Seligman speaks about is personalization. So this one's probably the easiest to understand. And this is about who we blame when things go wrong. So in bad situations, we can blame ourselves, so we can internalize, or we can blame other people, externalize. Also, we can blame other people or other circumstances, other situations. So the research suggests that people who blame themselves when they fail have low self-esteem as a consequence, whereas people who blame external events don't typically lose their self-esteem. Typically, those who internalize are more likely to think they are worthless, talentless, or unlovable. Those who find external reasons for bad situations are more likely to like themselves better than people who blame themselves. People believe that good things, that they can cause good things, tend to like themselves better than people who believe that good things come from other people or circumstances. Although I understand this one more, I do have a struggle with how Seligman has explained personalization so far in this book, because I also believe, as you all know, that action has a lot to do with how I respond to external situations. And is that because I'm an optimistic personality or lean towards more pessimism in this area? I'm not sure, but I'm only in the first quarter of the book. So I'm interested to learn what more Seligman and his colleagues have to say in this area. And I know that this whole concept probably is a bit confusing while I speak about it on a video and based on just the quarter part of this book, the first part of this book. So I will teach you more as I read more, and if you want to check this book out, I would love you to please do, because I think it's super fascinating, and I also think that the self-awareness piece of recognizing whether you're an optimistic person or a pessimistic one can help us understand our typical responses to bad situations, to global pandemics, and that it can also teach us what to do next, what to do once we have that knowledge. We can figure out how to act differently if we feel like our normal response isn't serving us the way that we want it to. I'm excited to finish this book because he promises that I will learn to be more optimistic. He has tips and tricks on how to be more optimistic. He truly believes that optimism can be learned, that we can change our conscious and unconscious response to it, and I'm excited to learn more. So as I finish the book, I will teach you all I know, and if you'd like to check out his book, this particular book, or any of his books, I highly recommend them. He is an amazing scientist, an amazing thinker, and has taught me a lot about how I approach the world and how to increase my own hope levels. So I hope this has been helpful and at least informative, and I look forward to speaking to you again tomorrow. Take care.